Welcome to another episode of the brand Unveiled. I have a special guest today, and this lovely lady is a part of our Black Women Entrepreneurs of America campaign. Her name is Yvonne Nobles, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So get into it. As the founder of New You Wow, Yvonne facilitates restorative transformation aboard luxury cruises for driven career women that have reached a plateau and are on the verge of burnout. That is, let me focus. We're going to get into that. Each block of ICE, which stands for Iconic Cruise Experiences, empowers them to break through milestones and claim victory while achieving higher levels. A success strategist with a passion for mindset mastery and an avid traveler, Yvonne is on a mission to help millions break down barriers and reach new heights at home, at work, and at large. She can be reached via email at, and my video editor will put her email down there. Everybody, welcome Yvonne.
Hello. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you for that beautiful intro.
Pleasure. Of course, it's a pleasure to have you. So I usually like to start these conversations from the very beginning. Take us back to the start. Like, who is Yvonne and what made you decide I'm going to start New You Wow?
Yeah, that's a great question. I say my origin story was in the womb. I had a special connection with my mom. One of those experiences I had when I was 16, I was like, I really, really love this music group. It was a song by Fleetwood Mac. And she's like, that's all I listened to when I was pregnant with you. So just little things that are so special. And, you know, I always had a knack for connecting with people. I was 2 years old when Dad enlisted in the military. So that led to traveling, not by choice, but I fell in love with it. Because the more that I traveled, the more that I saw, we're all the same at heart. It's just getting past those judgments and the boxes we put each other in when we first meet. It's funny when I started coaching, Mom says, what exactly is that? What's life coaching? I said, well, you know how when I was little and people would ask me for advice and I'd never give it, I'd ask questions instead. She's like, yeah. I said, I do that, but now I get paid for it. She was like, okay. So I was just so driven to help women and children in particular get past the limits that we put on ourselves. The trauma, the breaks, the terrible experiences, we start buying into these stories that's it. But life can be so much more. And that's what keeps me going when I see someone really shine their light and get to a new level.
I think that's commendable, right? And whenever folks are able to pour into other people, I would like to think that there were particular circumstances where they didn't feel poured into. Absolutely. Or that they realized that more of the world needed light. So what were some of those experiences, like before you turned, I'll call it pain, into purpose? Like, what were some of the moments that you experienced that you realized moving forward, I don't want others that look like me or children growing up to have the same adversity that I'm facing?
You know, I jokingly say I feel like I've lived 9 lives because I have so many of those. But I'm going to pull one out that I think will resonate with women and children particularly. So at the time I was 9 or 10 years old, and Dad had just completed one assignment abroad, and we were back home in the small cow town where I was born. So if you're looking at a map of Florida, Okeechobee has a giant lake right beneath it, a little tiny dot, and it's orange groves and cowtown. However, the KKK marches are still supported. So it's very, I'm not going to call it backwards, but it's growing. So again, let's go back 4 decades. And I was asked by the administrators to take an IQ test based on some of my classes I'd had in other schools abroad. The most disruptive part was when they gave us the result. I remember sitting in the back seat. I was a nosy kid. And I say to Mom, what's Caucasan? Neither one of us knew the word Caucasian. And that label was placed on me then, I thought, as an honest mistake. But it gets worse. I walk into the first day of class, and when I'm admitted, the facilitator looks at me, looks at the paper, looks at me, and looks at the paper. Mouth drops and goes, oh, we were expecting someone different. And even at that age, I knew what that meant. Now, fortunately, it made me fight. It made me become a warrior. It made me determined that any room I walked into, I would prove that I didn't just belong there or deserve to be there, but I would be the best. But
Mm-hmm.
when I started unpacking that recently, I realized it forced me to acknowledge that wasn't a mistake. That was a very intentional hiding for public records, that the child that scored the highest IQ at that time and in that region was supposed to have been something different.
Mm.
And so, what that does, even as an adult, it's just, again, the stories we buy into, the labels that are placed on us. I want people to be challenged to start thinking, what changes for you and for everyone that depends on you when you get past that? What if you change your reality? What if you go after that big dream that someone told you didn't belong to you? And what if you felt into it in such a way that it was already yours? So that's just one experience. But one that
Yeah.
asked me, how are you so positive? How do you stay smiling? And I'm like, because love never fails. When you come from a
Mm.
place of light, a place of love, you're going to see the darkness, but you realize that's not for you and it can't stop you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's
That's
the
beautiful.
empowerment mission I'm on. Yeah,
Yeah, that's beautiful, especially life is hard. Life is definitely challenging.
absolutely.
Um and I always say that it's a lot easier to experience when you are surrounded by a great support system, but
Yes.
what happens when you're not or when you're by yourself, right? Like
Mm,
it's equally important to be able to sort of pull yourself out of dark moments and to just have like a positive mindset and approach to help you navigate hardship.
couldn't
Um,
agree more. Couldn't agree more. And
so,
perhaps that was growing up as an army brat that helped, because every 2 years
mm,
I was in a new place and I couldn't call my best friend. I couldn't call an established mentor. Like it was me starting brand new and, getting the
yeah,
new kid looks and the tease and everything that comes with that. But you grow this resiliency that you start realizing those things that some see as a curse are your blessing. The things that
right.
get you to a new level, in the moment, they might seem heavy or arduous or they hurt, but that's because there are millions that are waiting for you to give them a lift, to give them that helping hand. And you're only capable of doing that if you've been there yourself.
Yeah. If you've been there, but also have the courage to share where you've been,
Yeah, that courage is
right?
key. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So bring us up to speed a little bit, right? So did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and advocate for women and children, or was that not the case at all?
Yeah, I say now I feel as if I'm responding to a calling that I had as a child. But what took a
Mm,
while to get there was what you mentioned, that element of the courage factor. You're not born with courage. It takes
mm,
cultivation. It takes being willing to take the leap when everyone else is, running the other way. And the fear that I had was, can I really make money with this? Will anyone take me
mm,
seriously? I don't look like the people that are at the forefront. So why would I be someone that could be a change maker? And so I kind of
right.
dipped my toe in it by tutoring first. And Brianna, when I could see these children light up, I had one little girl. Her mother came to me and she was very afraid she was going to fail. She's like, she's got D's and F's and I need to I have to have her make it through this grade. Can you help? I said, yeah, give me some time, but I have one requirement. I need you setting present so you can see how we interact, so you can carry that torch forward when we're done. And she agreed. So at first she was really quiet, really shy, didn't really want to do the work. But by the time a few months later we wrapped up, she was running the show. She was making A's and B's. Everything was amazing. And a big part of that was I had her do affirmations. And
Mm,
I wanted her to feel into her power, know who she was. And, when I first gave them to her, I said, okay, so every time you're about to do homework, anytime you're about to take a test, anytime you're scared and the teacher calls on you, I want you to say, I am strong, I am powerful, I am beautiful. So the first time I had her say them, I said, say them for me now. She whispered them. And I was like, no, 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 no. That's not going to cut it. I need you to say it. So she said a little bit louder. I said, I need you to shout it. And when I saw her turn into that powerful lioness. I just knew she'd be good. And so the mom later
Yeah.
was like, but I don't get it. How did you get it? I said, you sat right there. You saw. It's never about the subject. And it's not really about that child. It's about their belief and their ability to be more.
Mm.
And, as long as you pour into that, they'll be just fine.
I got chills when you said it's about their belief to be more. Because, particularly for entrepreneurs, what we do is so risky.
Yes.
Um, and it requires an element of faith for sure. But I like to call it a little bit of crazy too. Crazy belief, whatever you want to call it. But you definitely need a little bit of that.
Yes.
You have to have the willingness to be like audacious in life, entrepreneur or not. You know, if you want something, you have to have the balls essentially to go after it. But that courage, like you said, is cultivated,
Yeah.
right? So you can tell yourself affirmations all day long, but that's just as important as the other outside influences that you're consuming too.
Yes.
So the fact that the subject of your tutoring, which, believe it or not, I also was very shy. So you describing the awakening of her
Yeah.
definitely hits home for me. And I've seen it when I've interacted with youth too. Um, but you poured into her in such a way that like ignited her and made
Yeah.
her realize this is my voice. I can use it now. So shout out to you for creating an environment for her to like test that out. It's something that so many of us need, and sometimes we don't get it,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well,
So
one thing I would challenge anyone who's listening to do is look for ways to be the person who creates it. Because I
yeah.
have this saying, the more you give, the more you get. So I actively just, as a child even, I would befriend the kid who was the loner, the one that everyone else is
Mm,
picking on, the one that, because when people think they can't, they won't. But the minute
right.
that someone sees them, that literally is all it takes. And, I hear a lot of people say sometimes you have to borrow other people's belief in you before your own belief in yourself kicks in. So what you were saying
Yeah.
about having that outside support, having that lift. What do they say, that you're the sum total of the five people you spend most of your time with? But what people overlook is, let's say you're alone. Well, then those five people can be, what are you reading? What are you watching?
Right.
What are you listening to? Whatever enters your mind, you are what you eat. So what are you
Hmm.
feeding on so you can become the next level you? It's much easier than
Right.
we think, but we just have to get out of our own way.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So your journey and sort of your affinity for wanting to, I'll just use your terminology, restore and provide the tools and the knowledge and the insight and the perspective to create transformations within individuals started at tutoring.
Yeah.
Then what happened? What was next?
So obviously, I think that's part of my personality as military brat. I just love trying new things. So some people call it shiny object syndrome, but for me, I just love learning. I want to say I was early 20s, and I just came home and declared to my mom, I'm moving to New York City for a year. She was mortified because she's like, you're going to be a young woman in New York by yourself. And I'm like, Mom, you saw how we grew up. I'll be okay. I'll call you every day. You know I'll be fine. But in doing that and taking those adventures and those challenges, that little girl that had the issue with, being mislabeled, I found even in corporate
Mm,
America, it still was there.
yeah.
There was a lot of microaggressions and gaslighting, and I didn't know what it was called back then, but I felt it. And I was determined not to let that change me or stifle me. And I started thinking, if I'm going through this, then there must be other people going through this. And even if they're not
Right.
actively victims of it, there's got to be others who care. So what can I do to change that? And it all came to a pinnacle when, after moving down from New York, because my dad was very sick and unfortunately passed away, um,
Mm,
my hubby and I decided to stay put here in South Florida. And a friend that knew I was looking for, a new role, new career, says, you should try selling cruises. And I was like, yeah, I'd never been on one. So she's like, you just have a way of talking to people. I think you do great. So I was like, okay. So at the time, I'm living an hour and a half one direction from the port. So I would drive that on a good day. Sometimes it was 3 hours one way. But when you have a vision and you're determined to do something, you can't be stopped. So I was like, I'm going to learn this thing and I'm going to be good and I'm going to make lots of money. So yeah, I learned the amazing world of cruises and
Mm.
faked it till I made it because I didn't go on one until I got vacation time a year later. But it was just beautiful to hear how others describe the experience. And I was like, that sounds amazing. So I had a way of helping people just paint the picture and imagine. And when we finally took ours, I told my hubby, okay, it's time to go. He's like, I ain't getting on no boat. I'm like, okay, so if we don't do this thing, I'm not going to know what I'm talking about. So we going. And before it was over, that first one, he said, when are we doing this again? So I'm outperforming people who've been there for 10, 20 years just because I love talking to people and helping them imagine the possibilities. But it was nothing like when we went on that cruise and
Right.
felt what it does. Changing your environment and looking at possibilities and having the ocean as your background, like there's just so many levels. And so at the
Hmm.
height of the pandemic, everyone knows the cruise industry came to a complete halt. But what people
Yeah.
don't know is those that were like myself selling, oh, we were busier than ever because no one knew when it was going to resume. So everyone was calling and rescheduling. So we had triple work because we had to keep
Mm.
moving out these dates. But I also kind of became a therapist of sorts because the people that were calling
Right.
booking cruises, they were having trauma. They were losing jobs. They were losing loved ones. And I was that comforting voice that would help them be okay. So it dawned on me, hmm, maybe I should get paid for that. so, so yeah, I took it to the streets, went ahead and took a huge leap at the height of the pandemic and said I'm going to focus strictly on coaching. And it's been an adventure ever since.
Wow. And so the coaching that you do, is it facilitated only through these luxury cruise experiences, or is it also done on land or virtually? Like how, what's the environment that you facilitate the coaching?
Well, that's a great question. And I do have different packages and options available because I know some are very averse to getting on a cruise ship. But the actual cruise offering is something that I just developed a couple months ago because I remembered what a cruise did for me. And I said, wait, if I take my mindset coaching and success strategy and I deliver that on a retreat at sea, that just up levels it to so many new
Yeah,
levels. Like I have not experienced that because, I
right.
tend to be a lazy cruiser. I'm the one who's hiding. Everyone else goes for the shore excursions and I just felt like I own the ship. It's all mine. So I was going for relaxation. I'm up to number 12 now. And I think you said you love cruising too.
I
But
do.
it's one of those things where I was like, wait, but what if you marry the travel aspect with the personal inner reinvent? What does that make? So I'm
Yeah.
basically hosting inaugural, sailings. It's going to be one in August, one in November. And I just can't wait to see what these ladies become in the span of 1 week.
Yeah.
I guess, too, the reason it holds a special place in my heart was so the very first cruise I took after I quit the corporate role, we it was one that I'd manifested from 3 years before. I said to my husband when we found out about the ship being built, we're going to be on that ship and we're going to be in our first suite at sea. And I know what type of suite we're going to have, and everything came to fruition. So on
Mm.
that cruise, I decided I'm going to write a book. So in 7 days on a cruise with the ocean as my background music, got her done.
Perfect.
And it felt magical. So I was like, if I could do that, then I know that women who have untold stories inside of them, who need to experience something outside of their day to day, this is the ticket.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I will say that I've only been on two cruises, one with my family, one by myself,
Oh,
and I'm going on my third one later this year as
awesome.
well. And it's for 15 days, so it's long. It's very
Beautiful.
long.
Beautiful.
But you're right. There's something about having the ocean as your background and just peace. Like it's just it's so peaceful and you don't have to worry about anything. You can choose to be connected to the world or not.
Yeah.
Like it. it does a lot within the time span, and it's definitely refreshing.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that the experience you're creating, where, you know, it's not necessarily excursion related, but it's still allowing women to connect not only with others but themselves, and having like prompts and things that they can follow to sort of guide them in the thinking and getting to that level of
Oh, yeah.
feeling refreshed, feeling grounded, feeling I can do anything. Like I felt all of that when I came back from my cruise. So
Beautiful.
yeah, that's a match made in heaven, particularly for solo cruisers. I feel like you
Awesome.
definitely have a targeted demographic that, yeah, if this is a new offer, you're
Yeah.
gonna do fantastic.
I'm so excited, and thank you for that. That's beautiful. It's one of those things too where I think when I'm listening to the ocean and I see it, the tide's coming in. I think I'm going to title that particular program "Rising Tide" because we all have this element
Mhm.
of getting to that new level. There was this one time, I think it was the one where I wrote the book, where I saw two dolphins swimming beside each